So now that we know the NHL Draft Lottery rules, today we're going to conduct the NHL Draft Lottery simulation, followed by a mock draft of the top 15 selections. We'll jump into that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. Now, as I mentioned, today we're conducting an NHL Draft Lottery simulation and a top 15 pick mock draft. So we're going to hop onto the computer, run a draft lottery simulator to determine the draft order, and then we'll conduct the selections. Now, of course, as we know, with the new draft lottery rules for this year for 2020, the top 3 selections are in play, and there is a possibility that we might not know one of the teams. We're going to have to do a phase 2 of the simulation. So what we're going to do is we're going to run a simulation. If the 3 teams in the top 3 are the bottom 7 teams that we know are in the draft lottery for sure, then we will have our determined order and proceed from there. If we don't, if we have one of the other teams pop up that's going to be in a 24-team playoff format, we'll have to call it a placeholder spot and conduct a phase 2 simulation to determine who that team would be. And of course, that's just going to be a prediction based on who I think will end up losing those qualifying round matchups and who will end up in the draft lottery. So we may not even need that. So first off, let's jump onto the computer here and we'll do the draft lottery simulation to see how we make out. All right, so as you can see, we're now on draftprospectshockey.com. We're going to use this site. It's a different one that I haven't used before for a draft lottery simulation. So as I mentioned, we'll run the lottery here. If we get the top 3 picks amongst the bottom 7 teams that we know are in it for sure, then we'll be able to proceed directly with our picks. Otherwise, we'll have to have an extra step here. So stand by for a moment. We're going to click the lottery button, see how the simulation turns out. So there we have it. The Detroit Red Wings are the lucky winners for the first overall selection. Ottawa, with their San Jose pick, gets the number 2 spot, and the Buffalo Sabres move up 3 spots to gain the number 4 selection. And of course, after that, we go the order in standings, which puts Ottawa at 4, LA at 5, Anaheim at 6, New Jersey at 7. I'll scroll through here so you can have a quick look. You get Montreal, Chicago, New Jersey via the trade with Arizona. You get Minnesota, Winnipeg, Calgary, the Rangers, and New Jersey, who have the Vancouver Canucks first-round pick. That pick's been traded multiple times, went from Vancouver to Tampa, Tampa to New Jersey. So let's now dive in, and we'll pick what players we feel these guys are going to select with their selections. With the first overall selection, the Detroit Red Wings would have no doubt here who they're picking. They're taking left winger Alexis Lafreniere from the QMJHL. He is going to be a tremendous hockey player, tremendous offensive talent. He can play physical. He may not be something we call a generational talent, but certainly something we're going to call a franchise player. The Red Wings are in desperate need of a big-time player they can build around. They do have a few good pieces there, but even Dylan Larkin, who's arguably their top star right now, I'm not sure that he even has the star power of a Lafreniere. You throw in some other prospects they already have that they're still working on, like Joe Veleno, Philip Zadina, etc. They could end up building a pretty good group of players around him, but he is no doubt going number 1 overall in this draft. With the second overall selection, the Ottawa Senators would no doubt take the top center of the draft, Quinton Byfield. He's 6'4", 214 pounds, has a load of offensive talent, can be a top number 1 center iceman that team can build around. They already have a very deep prospect pool, and it might be tempting to look at some of his other prospects, like a Tim Stutzle or a Jamie Drysdale. But at number 2, the Senators would have no choice here but to take Byfield. As much as a lot of these other prospects look really good, I don't think they can pass this guy up. And of course, they're also going to be picking in a couple more slots here, so they're going to have another option to grab another top player. When they have 2 picks so high, it certainly gives them more flexibility, but they have to take the top center iceman here, who really would help accelerate their rebuild. Selecting 3rd overall, the Buffalo Sabres would then select German-born forward Tim Stutzle. Now, Stutzle would be a tremendous pickup for the Sabres, desperately in need of that number 2 center iceman. Do they have it already with Dylan Cousins or Casey Mittelstadt? That's yet to be determined. There's a lot of people think Cousins is going to be a winger at the NHL level, and Mittelstadt, I think it's fair to say, has not really shown he's ready for that kind of role. Adding a top prospect like Stutzle into the mix, who some can say he's a center, some think he's going to be a winger. Difficult to say exactly where he's going to be at the NHL level, but either way, he's got all the tools to be a tremendously gifted offensive forward who can play, at this point at least, either position. Could it be a top winger for Jack Eichel?
Could he be that number 2 center to play behind Jack Eichel? He has that possibility to possibly be either one, and I just don't see there being any other options for the Sabres at this point. They already have a top defenseman in Rasmus Dahlin. They might be tempted to go after a guy like DRYSDALE here to really help that decor, but where they've already grabbed the top defenseman in Dahlin in the last couple of years, I can see them going this route where they desperately lack that forward depth currently in their system. Selecting 4th overall with their 2nd pick in this draft, the Ottawa Senators then take the top D-man in the draft from the OHL's Erie Otters, Jamie Drysdale. I mean, they would have 2 high picks here. If they can grab the top center or the top defenseman, that's going to be an absolute steal for this team, considering one of the picks came from the Sharks where they traded their previous top defenseman in Erik Karlsson. That would be a tremendous pickup for Ottawa. They do have a lot of promising blue liners, led currently by Thomas Chabot. Eric Brandstrom has a lot of potential. Christian Wolanin has a lot of potential. They have a few other guys as well. But if Jamie Drysdale has the potential to be a number 1, he would be somewhat comparable to a Thomas Chabot. That's a good problem to have. He'd probably be a year or 2 away. Let him play another year junior, depending on if there is junior hockey this fall, or what exactly the status of all the leagues are, of course. But there is some to think that he could possibly jump to the NHL right away as well. But given the prospect pool of the Senators, they would have no need to rush. At this point, the NHL likely won't be starting the 2020 season until December or January, and at that point, he'd have that much more time to grow and develop. So hard to say. It's going to also be hard without hockey for so long, but the Senators definitely grabbed Drysdale with his number 4 pick. With the number 5 overall selection, the LA Kings select from Sweden forward Lucas Raymond. Now, Raymond's had a bit of an up and down type of year, depending on where you see in the mock drafts. I mean, I've had him higher and lower, and a lot of it really boils down to the team and the order of the selection that we were working with. I mean, I've had some mock drafts where I've had him down as low as 8 or 9. And I've had other ones where we've had him up much higher. But like I said, it really boils down to the team. But he would be a great fit in LA. LA Kings have one of the greatest, deepest, most talented prospect pools around the NHL right now. But he's kind of a missing piece that they don't have. I mean, he's tough to play against, great defensive player. Even if he only ends up being a second-line winger who's tremendous defensively, can play on the PK and be a 25 to 30 goal guy, that's still a tremendous pickup. I think if he's available at 5, the Kings take him every time. With the 6th overall pick, I have the Anaheim Ducks selecting center iceman from the OHL, Cole Perfetti. Now, the Ducks already have another top center iceman in their system, Trevor Zegras, one of the top prospects outside the NHL. Zegras is a terrific playmaking center iceman, whereas Perfetti's more of a shot-first center iceman. So even though they're both, they could easily be the top 1-2 punch down the middle for this team in the near future. They also have a guy like Sam Steele, who could be a number 2, number 3 center longer term as well. The Ducks are certainly needing to go through a bit of a rebuild, but they have some pretty good prospects already. They can add a guy like Perfetti, who, even though he's a center, like Zegras, he's a different kind of player, adds a different element, and I see him being a great fit in Anaheim. Next up at 7 overall, we have the New Jersey Devils selecting, and I have them picking from Sweden, Alexander HOLTZ, who very well might be the best, if not one of the best, pure goal scorers in this draft class. I think New Jersey will take HOLTZ in this scenario. Now, in the past, we've had mock drafts where I've had the Devils going the route of taking a top goalie in the draft, YAROSLAVASKAROV, but I think in this situation, given what's on the board and rethinking things a little bit with what's in their prospect pool, I think they very well might have enough confidence in Mackenzie Blackwood that they might try to get a different piece here. Now, the other thing is New Jersey has multiple first-round picks. They have another one coming up in a couple of selections where they can snag another player. I think at this point they take HOLTZ, the pure goal scorer, might be able to play with Jack Hughes and be a tremendous top-line forward for them and take their chances that Askarov might still be available here in a few selections' time. And I guess we'll see if I have him available for them or not when we get there. Next up, selecting 8th overall, we have the Montreal Canadiens, and I have them selecting from the Ottawa 67, Austrian-born forward Marco Rossi, who had a tremendous year in the CHL, putting up a ton of points, proven to be one of the top playmaking center icemen available. And of course, Rossi is a bit on the small side, 5'9", about 180 pounds. But as we know, Montreal is not afraid to go with a smaller lineup. They have some other players that certainly fit that category now. But he's just too good of a playmaker to pass up in this situation. Now, at this point, the goaltender, Askarov's still on the board, but they don't need him right now. They have a guy like Carey Price under contract for a number of years to come. They got Caden Primo in their system. So why not take the top center iceman, the top offensive player right now that's still on the board, who could potentially be a great center and a good fit for top winger Cole Caulfield, who's in their system playing college hockey right now. So I think the Habs take Rossi in this situation, given the fact that I had him slide a bit in this draft order. Next up, selecting 9th overall, we have the Chicago Blackhawks, and they are going to select a top goalie in the draft. With the 9th overall pick, they'll take YAROSLAVASKAROV from Russia, who certainly was a potential player that I think New Jersey would like to get because they're next up here after taking HOLTZ with their previous pick. But Chicago, this is a perfect team for Askarov. They have an aging goaltender in Corey Crawford, who's a pending free agent who may not return. We saw them trade Robin Lehner. They have Malcolm Subban, who's really not a starting goaltender in the NHL. They don't have that clear-cut starter ready to take over for the future, and Askarov could be that guy. May not be immediately. He may stay over in Russia for a year or two, but that's okay. The Chicago Blackhawks could either re-sign Crawford on a short-term deal or dip into free agency to find a stopgap, and he could be their goaltender of the future in a very short order. Next up, selecting 10th overall is the New Jersey Devils, and I have them selecting defenseman from the United States National Team Program, Jake Sanderson. Now, as I mentioned, I think in this scenario, the Devils will be hoping to have Askarov still on the board, but where he's not, they've already grabbed themselves a top goal-scoring forward. The Devils clearly need some help on defense, and Sanderson is their guy. He's arguably, in my opinion, the number 2 defenseman in the draft at this point. Clearly, I've contemplated having them select Sanderson with their first pick a few picks back here, but I just really think HOLTZ was too much of an opportunity for them to pass up, and I figured Sanderson in this scenario likely would still be available for them when this pick comes up, so they could have the option of either going with the defenseman or the goalie, depending on who was on the board. And to be honest, even if Askarov's on the board at this point, there's still a chance they take Sanderson because they said they really need help on that blue line. I think that blue line of theirs is going to be retooling a lot this year, and Sanderson's a guy they can be patient with. He's going to play college hockey probably for 1 or 2 years at least, maybe 3. Hard to say exactly, but he'll be there in the NHL in a couple of years' time. He's got a decent size, pretty good on both ends of the ice, and be a great fit for New Jersey. Next up at 11 overall, the Minnesota Wild would select Finnish forward Anton Lundell. Now, at this point, the Minnesota Wild, I think, are going to be quite surprised and pleased that Lundell is still on the board. Clearly, they need some offense. They need some forwards who can really help lead this team into the future. They did have a few guys have a bit of a breakthrough year the current year before the NHL season was paused. But Lundell be a good two-way forward, a little bit more offensively gifted than I think sometimes he gets credit for. But still, I think the fact that he's still available, this is mainly due to the fact here that some of the teams drafting ahead of them went by a little bit more positional need in this draft. So like Sanderson, Askarov, which left him on the board, and he could be that top 6 forward that they're really looking for and desperately need right now. Along with a guy like Kirill Kaprizov, who'll be joining their lineup here hopefully as soon as next season. Then those two players could really help lead Minnesota out of this rebuild and into being more of a playoff contender. 12th overall selection, the Winnipeg Jets select from the Ottawa 67s forward Jack Quinn. Now, I realize the Winnipeg Jets likely could use some blue liners. I just don't think that the blue liners available here, like a guy like Schneider or Gooley, would be really interesting for the Winnipeg Jets. Jack Quinn is too good of a player and had too good of a year for them to pass up this selection. Put up 52 goals. He can play all 3 forward positions. Very versatile. Had a tremendous year of growth without getting a lot of time on the top line. With the 67s as well. Put up 52 goals without consistently playing in that spot. So really, that's very, very impressive. He has the possibility to really be a solid, well-rounded, smart, goal-scoring, a top 6 forward. And I think the Winnipeg Jets, even though they have a really solid forward group right now, could be patient with Quinn, let him develop, see what they have. But I think he could be a tremendous fit for them in a few years' time. With the 13th overall selection, I have the Calgary Flames taking Dawson Mercer from the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. Originally born in Newfoundland, Dawson Mercer had a pretty solid year, but ended up being hurt near the end of the season, which kind of diminished his value a little bit after he was traded as well into QMJHL. He kind of had a smaller role on the team he was playing on, which certainly didn't help his offensive numbers, but still, Mercer's a really smart player, above average skater, is really a great offensive threat, can play in all situations, and I really think the Calgary Flames could use another solid forward like Mercer in their lineup. Again, I think some of the defensemen here at this point in the draft, even though the Flames could possibly use them, they have enough prospects in their system already that they would take the forward in this situation. Next up at 14th overall, we have the New York Rangers, and I have them selecting Dylan Holloway, who will be the first college player in this draft from the University of Wisconsin. Got pretty good size, 6 feet tall, 192 pounds. He's got a terrific skater. He's really good with his edges, great acceleration. Overall skating very well might be one of his greatest strengths here, but he has the potential to be a really powerful two-way center iceman. The Rangers have a lot of young players already in their system, and they can be patient with Holloway as he likely plays a couple more years of college hockey before making the jump to the NHL. But he plays with a very high compete level, some pretty good offense, pretty good in his own end as well, and I think he'd be that missing piece, a different kind of prospect that they don't have a lot of in their system currently. With our third selection in the first round, 15th overall, I have the New Jersey Devils selecting from the Portland Winterhawks, Seth Jarvis. Now, Jarvis might be a little bit on the smaller side at 5'9", 165, but he's a tremendous forward with a lot of talents. He's speedy, he's creative, he thrives off the rush, he plays a lot on the penalty kill and can generate a lot of offense. He's very dangerous in those situations, very skilled, plays with a lot of pace, plays with a lot of energy, and I think based on where New Jersey's at here in the draft, they've already grabbed themselves a top sniper goal scorer, they've grabbed themselves a pretty solid defenseman, and now they can take a different kind of forward to add to the mix here. To be completely honest, I would not be shocked with New Jersey if the draft worked out this way, that New Jersey would not end up making all three of these selections, that at least one of these picks would be traded, or they would combine some picks here to try to move up. But for the sake of this mock draft, of course, we're not conducting any trades, so we'll give Jarvis to the Devils, which I think the Devils have made out quite fine here with their 3 picks in this draft.
So those are my top 15 selections based on this draft lottery simulation. Of course, as always, we'll know your thoughts and opinions on the selections down below in the comment section. Let me know which players you think would be best for these teams based on the draft order, and we can discuss further in the comment section. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and turning on your notifications so you don't miss any future content. And give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you for watching, and I will catch you next time.